Welcome to Connect at 51, the online Bible study from Midtown C3 Church, Manhattan. This video has been made to provoke thought and discussion as we explore the Bible together. So get a group together, watch the video until you see a question screen like this, then pause the video and share your answers with the group. So to start with today, the first question is this. If you were unexpectedly given $1 million, what would you do with it? Today we're going back to one of the earliest parts of the Bible in Genesis 14. A raiding army has just attacked Sodom and Gomorrah, and the army has taken all the goods and possessions from these cities and taken many people as captives. Abram discovers his nephew Lot is one of the captives and leads an army of his own to rescue these captives. Abram wins so decisively that not only does he recover all the people taken, but also all the stolen goods and possessions. He's probably now considering what to do next with all of this loot when he's met by two kings, the king of Sodom and the king of Salem. Let's see what happens next in Genesis 14 verse 17. After his return from the defeat of Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley of Shaveh, that is, the king's valley. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand." And Abram gave him a tenth of everything. And the king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the persons, but take the goods for yourself." But Abram said to the king of Sodom, "I have lifted my hand to the Lord God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, that I would not take a thread or a sandal strap or anything that is yours, lest you should say, 'I have made Abram rich.'" So as we read this account, what do we know about Sodom, and what did the king of Sodom want from Abram? Sodom was infamous for its wickedness. The king of Sodom is trying to cut a deal with Abram. He probably sees Abram as a powerful military force in the region and is trying to forge an alliance by proposing, just give back the people from Sodom, but keep all the wealth that was recovered. Now it's interesting that Abram rejects the offer with some pretty harsh language, saying, "I would not take a thread or a sandal strap." He gives back everything, as he doesn't want any association with Sodom, and he doesn't want to give anyone a reason to say that his success and wealth has to do with such a wicked place. In these verses, we are also introduced to a very different king. The name Melchizedek means king of righteousness, and he is described as a priest of God the Most High. What does Melchizedek do, and how does Abram respond? The mysterious king firstly brings out bread and wine. Keep that in mind as we'll explore more on that later. He then performs a blessing over Abram in the name of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. As the blessing continues, it becomes clear that it was God that delivered the enemies to Abram. And it would appear that Abram receives a revelation during this blessing that God is the possessor of everything and his victory was due to him. So he clearly realizes that the wealth he has just received is not his, but God's. So he responds by giving a tithe, 10% to Melchizedek, the minister of God. After he dedicates this first portion to God, the rest of the wealth is divided up between the other allies that fought in the battle, and the rest is given back to Sodom. In fact, when he addresses the king of Sodom, Abram uses the exact same words of the blessing, saying that he has lifted his hands, that is, he's taken an oath to the Lord God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. This demonstrates that the words of Melchizedek was truly received by Abram, and he's acting boldly on it. And when you consider how much wealth this would have been, the equivalent of millions in today's money, you can appreciate what a bold move this was. So where did Melchizedek rule, and what was the significance of this place? Melchizedek is the king of Salem. Salem in another pronunciation is Shalom, which means peace. So not only is he the king of righteousness, he is the king of peace. And this place, Salem, is where we get the word Jerusalem from. So if indeed Salem is this place that we now know as Jerusalem, Melchizedek was the king of a place where David later established the capital of Israel. It is where Solomon built the temple, and subsequently this was the central location for Jesus' ministry, death, and resurrection. I find it fascinating to note that Abram's tithe to Melchizedek went back to Salem, and therefore Abram contributed to the founding of a city that became such a central location for his descendants in the future. I hope that you take inspiration from this, that your tithes and gifts are establishing something for the future generations beyond what you can imagine. So the next question is this: what similarities do you see here between Melchizedek and Jesus? The first similarities we can see are in the names. Melchizedek's name means king of righteousness, and we read in Romans 3:22 that righteousness is given through faith in Jesus. Melchizedek is also the king of Salem, in other words, the king of peace. And in Isaiah 9, Jesus is referred to as the Prince of Peace. Next, Melchizedek brings out bread and wine for Abram. And Jesus not only brought out bread and wine in the miracles he performed, but also during the Last Supper he refers to his body as bread broken and his blood as wine poured out. The meaning of this is fulfilled on the cross. Psalm 110 and Hebrews 6 and 7 also describe Jesus as a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. So Jesus, as this high priest, also blesses us from God Most High. So it's amazing to see just how connected the Bible is, that this brief incident many thousands of years ago points to Jesus so clearly. So as we explore this account, who do you identify with in this story? On one hand, you may identify with Abram. You may see yourself as someone who has been blessed by God and the ministers of the church. You may be considering what you will give as a dedication to God, especially during this season of vision builders at our church. But furthermore, we can also identify with Melchizedek, for we are told in 1 Peter 2 that we are a chosen people, a royal priesthood. So just as Jesus is a priest in the order of Melchizedek, we too are also ministers and priests in this same order. So who are you blessing with your words and prayers? Who are you bringing bread to that fulfills needs? And are you pouring out the wine that saves to others? And how are you bringing peace and righteousness around you? So as we conclude, ask yourself this: who can you bless by your words, prayers, and deeds?